Big Sills! One day away from the 2023 NFL Draft. And it is building with anticipation for sure. Many teams are going to get the opportunity to draft impact players. I don't think there's a ton of them in this draft. I think you're in a position that maybe 15 great prospects are in this draft. And I would say the best player in the draft is Bijan Robinson. By the way, the conversation is picking up a lot of steam for Philadelphia in number 5. It's picking up a ton of steam. Even Jimmy Johnson, who was on yesterday, said that it would make the Eagles electric. By the way, the next 2 days, we got Merrill Reese on at 5:30 today. And didn't you know what Big Sill started thinking? Who was the last Eagle running back drafted in the first round? Who was the last running back that the Philadelphia Eagles drafted in the first round? Do you guys know? Steve. Keith Byars. Do you guys know what pick he was? What pick? What pick was Keith Byars in 1986 in the first round for the Eagles? Do you guys know? Think about this. Talk about irony. JM. That's right. Keith Byars is the last running back that the Philadelphia Eagles drafted in the first round, and it just so happens he was the 10th pick in the draft. And the Eagles are sitting at 10 with the ability to potentially draft another guy. Give me a letter grade on what you thought Keith Byars' career was in Philly. A letter grade. What do you think Keith Byars was as a player out of Ohio State? What kind of football player? How good do you think Byars was? B? A C player? I think a B plus too. Keith was a hell of a football player. Him and Keith Jackson and Randall. Dude, that guy was like an all-around back. You bet. He could block, right, Jason? Catch footballs out of the backfield, running between the tackles. He was a big back. Keith Byars was a hell of a football player. You know, C plus, dude. C plus. C plus is Miles Sanders. That's a C plus player. Are you trying to suggest to me you think Miles Sanders is a better running back than Keith Byars? I don't think so. Okay? I don't think so. So I would say this to you. We're going to get him on tomorrow at 4:30. So the next 2 days, today, Merrill Reese, 5:30. And then tomorrow, the player who was the last player taken in the first round by the Philadelphia Eagles, and it just so happens to be the 10th pick. Like Tone said, almost 40 years ago, you guys did this. Do you do it again Thursday night? Talk about irony. So we thought we'd get Byars on, and Keith is so gracious to give us the interview tomorrow. He will jump on with us tomorrow, draft day, with the Eagles with the 10th pick. What do they do? Okay, working on Westbrook still, my friends. He's swamped as well. It's draft week. Got to move people around. All good, JM. Working on everybody. Okay, working on everybody. We got you here. We got you covered here. All right. How about that love, though, man? The Bijan love is killing it right now. Big Sills, Bijan. I saw somebody say this. All the sports talk hosts in Philadelphia are going and telling everybody how stupid I am for kind of pushing this narrative about Bijan Robinson to the Eagles. And now it's starting to look like it could be real. How about that for you? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about putting a guy in a position to help this football team win. And by the way, let me say this to you. The Eagles at 10 have an impact pick. Pick an impact player at 10 or pick an impact player. Make it an impact move. This is a position you're not going to be in the near future. You're not. This is going to be a situation where you get an opportunity at an impact guy. Through 7 years with Philly, Keith Byars gave the Eagles 6,200 total yards from scrimmage and 30 touchdowns, an average 5.5 yards per touch when he was a Philadelphia Eagle. So every time you gave the ball to, hey, how about this? Every time Keith Byars had the ball, every 2 times he got you a first down. Gee, that wouldn't help Jalen. Probably not, right, Tone? A guy averaging 5.5 yards per touch as a member of the Eagles. No, every 2 times he touches it, you get a first down. You're right. That probably doesn't help the team win a football game. Oh, come on, man. But I want to draft Myles Murphy or Nolan Smith at 10. Come on, guys. You want to take the 4th or 5th best edge rusher versus the best player in the draft. God. That philosophy makes no sense. I'll take the 5th best dude. The value of Nolan Smith's not number 10. He's more like 27. That's overdrafting like you did last year with Jordan Davis. Give me a break, man. The key to this whole thing with limited picks is you're trying to get an impact guy with limited picks. You've got some of the lowest numbers of picks going into Thursday night as of today. You want to expand that. By the way, our last mock draft, mock number 4, final one as we go into Thursday. We'll keep it and see. And by the way, I've shaken it up a lot. I've talked to GMs. I talked to Frank Reich, by the way. I got to tell you, man. I got to tell you. They're pretty sold on one guy. I know who they're going to take. And maybe I kind of buried the lead a little here. But for me, okay, we're going to get Frank on next week, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And he'll be on with us. I think that'll make it number 5 that Frank's been on the program. So we're going to do that mock number 4 here in a minute. But here are the 5 players as we get into the topics that I would love to see the Eagles select out of this draft. Now, look, I think Will Anderson's a pipe dream. I just think he's a pipe dream. Arizona's not moving off that guy. Come on, man. He's Cornelius Bennett. Would you move off of Cornelius Bennett if you knew you could draft him at number 3? Would you really move off of Cornelius Bennett? Biscuit was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time conference champion. Would you move off Cornelius Bennett? I can't think you would. I can't think you would, dude. He's a great football player. I'm not moving off of Will Anderson unless you give me a treasure trove of first-round draft choices if you're Arizona. Okay? I'm not doing it. He's an edge rusher, and that's a premium position. Here are the 5 guys I would love to see the Eagles land on in this draft. Here is the Big Sill sandbox of 5 players. If you get one of these guys, in my opinion, their skill set, their ranking, their athleticism, the need of the team, I took all that into consideration with these 5 guys. And here are the 5 players. Number 1, Jalen Carter, defensive tackle. He is a disruptive force. And in my opinion, in the years I've been doing broadcasting for nearly 35 years, it's the only time I've ever compared him to this guy. It's the only time. He's this guy. If you knew you could draft Jerome Brown at 10, like you did at 9, when JB came out of Miami, would you do it again? Would you draft the talent of Jerome Brown? Would you? Knowing the kind of player he was on that football team. And by the way, that guy's number hangs at Lincoln Financial. This guy's number hangs at Lincoln Financial. That's who Jalen Carter is to me. Number 2, could you imagine if the Eagles have an opportunity to pick between Bijan Robinson and Jalen Carter at 10? Whew. What an absolute incredible moment it would be for Howie to be able to pick from 2 impact guys. I think Carter's an impact guy too. I think the 2 impact guys, there's one other one I'll talk about here in a minute, but I think the 2 impact players in this draft are Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. Those are the 2, okay? Those are the 2 players that I think are the best-looking defensive impact players. Number 3, Tyree Wilson, edge rusher, Texas Tech. The more you watch him, the more you fall in love with him. Quick, gets up the field, has great hand placement, understands second move, which is important in a young pass rusher. You understand something. When you're an elite pass rusher in college, you don't really have to develop a second move. Why? Traditionally, most of the guys that you play against suck and will never play in the league. So you don't have to play against guys that are experienced and great and know how to move their feet, slide their feet, and are what? Patient in the O-line. Do you know the number one thing that I think it takes to be a great O-lineman? Besides the God's gift that he gives you to play the position, do you know what I think the more you become patient and the patience factor that you have, I think goes a long way in developing, because when you initially come into the league, you're a lunger, you're aggressive, you jump out at players, you punch. The really great ones are so, like Don Mosbar, Bruce Matthews, Mike Munchak. Those guys were all patient, strong, gifted, athletic, slid their feet well, got up on second levels, scooped and slipped. Man, and I think it takes longer to develop those guys than it does a defensive tackle. You've got to have tremendous feet. And I've always said this too. I think you've got to have better feet inside more than you do almost outside. Why? Because there's more traffic inside. Jason Kelsey's got great feet, and he understands points, and he understands getting into the perimeter. He understands all that. He's really good at angles. And that's what makes him, his technique, his sliding of his feet, his understanding of the position. The guy's a savant at center, and he's gifted. He's a great football player. Number 4, I got Paris Johnson. These are guys I wouldn't mind if the Eagles got. Okay? Wouldn't mind it. I think Paris Johnson comes from a great school. I think he comes from a school that produces O-linemen. I think he comes from a school that utilizes the O-linemen. They're very athletic at Ohio State. And there's been a bunch of guys that have come into the National Football League and had really good careers that have come out of that program that they have developed in the offensive line. They do a really nice job. You know why Ohio State Do you know why Ohio State dominates the Big Ten? Because they recruit like they're an SEC school. Don't you notice 2 things that separates Ohio State from every other school in the Big Ten and reminds you of the Southeastern Conference? They recruit in the trenches. The Joey and Nick Bozas, the Chase Youngs, all the kind of players that have played in the offensive defensive lines. They go out and they recruit like they're a Southeastern Conference. They recruit like they're Clemson. Clemson's ACC. But they recruit like they're Clemson, Bama, and Georgia and LSU. That's how they recruit, and why Ohio State is head and heels above every other program in the Big Ten, because they act like an SEC team. When schools like USC are looking for skilled players, Ohio State's looking for what the Eagles do. They recruit in the lines. It isn't funny. Ohio State operates like the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay? They operate like the Eagles. They're going to build their team from the trenches. That's why they kill Michigan traditionally every year. That's why nobody comes near them. I think that's one of the reasons that Penn State has kind of fallen off a bit, is because they used to have dominant offensive linemen. And they don't have those guys in those lines like they used to back in the day. Okay, so Greasy, Kevin Gogan, I believe, in my opinion, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kevin Gogan went to the University of Washington. Okay, Goes was a friend of mine. I think he's a Washington Husky, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Nick Mangold was a hell of a center. Greg, he was a hell of a center for the New York Jets. Played a long time, was really good in the trenches there. He played with DeBrickashaw Ferguson. They had a really nice offensive line with DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold in there, and they did some really good stuff in there with those two guys. They were centerpieces for a long time, and I think that was during the Rex Ryan era when they had DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold. Those guys were good, man. Had some good players in there. He was a good football player. And here's the fifth guy, and I'll tell you why I'm putting him here. Broderick Jones, offensive tackle, Georgia. So here are the five: Jalen Carter, Bijan Robinson, Tyree Wilson, Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones. One of these guys I'd love to see on the Eagles. Okay, I would. And why would I say Broderick Jones? After you get outside of the top two guys, Paris Johnson and Skrzynovsky, the rest of them are 87.5 rating. It doesn't really matter who they are. It doesn't matter. It has no bearing. Osiris Torrance, all those, they're all the same. They've all got the same skill set that Bledsoe and everybody has ranked. And many general managers, they're all in the same sandbox. It doesn't matter. Kid from Tennessee, you could take any one of those guys and be okay and put him at guard. Okay? Why Jones? Because he played at Georgia. And he played on a big-time program that was in big-time games. That's why. Or, hey, if you want to go somewhere else, okay. I think he gets the best coaching. I'm going with the best college coaching, the best schedule, winning, athleticism, size, need. So that's why I took him. That's why I took him. I took Broderick Jones because of all those other intangibles that we like to talk about. Played in a big-time program, one of the top recruited kids in high school going into college, one of the top offensive linemen being recruited going into the NFL combines and then going into the draft for tomorrow night. Played against really high-powered teams, played against really great football players that are going to be drafted high in the NFL come tomorrow night. Got the best coaching in the country at Georgia, and is that the best program in the country? I don't know, unless you can find something better. By the way, the guy Skrzynovsky played on a one-win team. Okay? I'm looking at all the intangibles. Okay? Tones, like you said, they are all evaluated very closely. At that point, you have to find the nuanced differences that separate them. That's right. Winning, coaching, type of teammate, how good you played against other SEC teams. Watch this. Who would you rather take? Would you rather take a Big Ten offensive tackle or a Southeastern Conference tackle if they're ranked the same? Who would you take? The Big Ten guy or the SEC guy that plays against monster competition week in and week out? It's a no-brainer. At least I know this. He's playing against the best. And guys that are going to be drafted in Kansas City, guys that are going to be drafted in Tennessee. Shit, do you notice one thing about this draft? There's no North Dakota States in it anymore. There's no Alcorn States anymore. You don't see any of that shit. You're looking at programs now that are the Power 5 programs. Why is that? Because kids can transfer now. Like the kid Gonzalez went from Colorado to Oregon. Why? He wanted better coaching. Colorado won one game last year. You're not getting good coaching there. Now you are with Deion. Okay? Now you are. You're gonna get better coaching. Dennis Thurman's now up there. Dennis Thurman's going to be coaching defensive backs, a former All-Pro defensive back. That's a freaking great hire. Always stick with players that play against great teams. That's why, dude, like I said, here's something moving forward. Don't ever draft a player out of North Dakota State. And I know Green Bay's got a wideout up there. Good luck to you, man. I hope he pans out. But that guy's overdrafted because he never playing against anybody, and he's killing a bunch of nobody guys. Makes no sense. Why would I draft a guy who is superior? Why did he go to LSU? My question would be, you draft a kid from North Dakota State, the wide receiver. My question is, why didn't you go to LSU? Why didn't you go to LSU? Why didn't you go to Ohio State or Bama? Why'd you have to go to North Dakota State? What, you didn't want to challenge yourself, son? Now, some players get better like Josh Allen. And they had no scholarship offers. Remember that. Josh Allen didn't pick Wyoming. It was his only choice. It wasn't like he had 18 schools like Arch Manning. He had one Division I scholarship offer. So he was forced to take that. Or he wouldn't have went anywhere. Okay? So I'm going to get to the pick here in a second. I think Will Anderson's a pipe dream. To move up, you'd have to give 10 and 30. To get the 3 to get him, it's an impact move. I mean, I wouldn't shit on it because he's also a spectacular player. But that's a lot to get. He's really, I think he's Cornelius Bennett. Okay, I do. I think he's Cornelius Bennett. Seals, who would you pick in prime, Sue or Javon Hargrave? Ndamukong Suh, hands down. Hargrave has never touched the Hall of Fame. Ndamukong Suh's on the cusp of being a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. Dude, Ndamukong Suh had a phenomenal career, as I do say that Fletcher had. Javon Hargrave in his prime, Fletcher Cox in his prime, come on, really? Is that a debate? That's not a debate, right? I don't think it is. I don't think it's close. I don't think that conversation's close. So again, Jalen Carter, Bijan Robinson, Tyree Wilson, Paris Johnson, and Broderick Jones. That's my board. And I'm waiting to see what happens in front of me. If I'm Howie, those are my 5 guys. Every one of those guys. Look, Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson help the need. The vacant offensive guard position and future for Lane. Once Lane steps away from the game, you're developing. Plus, you've got Stoutland. Tyree Wilson, edge rusher. He's taller than the other side. Here's why I like Tyree Wilson over Nolan Smith. You know why? This guy's 6'6". He automatically makes your front bigger. He's 6'4", 6'5 and a half, I think it is. You put him on the other side. I don't want 2 6'2" dudes on my outside perimeter, and those guys got to line up against Trey Williams. I'm not interested in that, especially if you're going to a 34. Paris Johnson, the need, Broderick Jones, Bijan, and Carter. You're not going to go wrong with any of those 5 guys. You start talking about corners and wideouts and whomever. Okay? You got the 10th pick, make it an impact move. Whatever it is, okay? So let's get to the draft. I do 4 of them a year. And they change. They change because evaluations change. Because why? You understand something. The pro guys, the only time, and Barrett Brooks could probably help you out with this as well. Like my only contact with NFL guys prior to me going into the draft. By the way, I was the 56th player taken as a junior. I had another year of eligibility. Well, that was a debate. And the NCAA, if I played today, I would have been playing my senior year anyway. I had another year of eligibility. So I left as a junior 56. The only contact that I had with the NFL guys was my sophomore year, and then going into my junior spring ball, I ran 40s and I did a pro day. And I think I benched 225 46 times, and I think I ran a 4.8. And the next year, I did 50 times 225 at my pro day, and I ran a 4.81, but I was heavier. I was 288. Jerome and I ran together. Jerome ran a 4.88. I ran a 4.81. Jerome was 315. See, you got to remember something, too. You got to remember this. Years ago, this is a tone. This is like 36 years ago. Colleges didn't have two guys 300 pounds playing defensive tackle running 4.8s. That wasn't happening. Guys weren't that fast. But if you didn't run under a 5 at Miami, Jimmy wouldn't put you over there. We didn't recruit. See, we didn't recruit players to your position that you would leave school with. Do you know what we did? You know why we never won recruiting wars? Because Jimmy would recruit me as a linebacker, beef me up, put me down in a 3-point stance. Jerome Brown was a tight end. Sapp was a tight end, moved him to defensive tackle. They moved us all around until they found a position for us that best suited our skill set. That's called coaching. Alonzo Highsmith was a defensive end. He played with Derek Thomas at Columbus High School in South Florida. Alonzo never wanted to ever be a running back. But you know what happened? Howard Schnellenberger moved him to fullback. He became a dual threat type player, and he was the third player taken by the Houston Oilers. So what was in the best interest of Alonzo Highsmith? Being a number 8 defensive end or the third player taken in the draft? Okay? That's how we did things at Miami. We never won recruiting wars. Russell Maryland was the number 1 overall player taken. You know how many college offers he got? 2. Toledo and Miami. We didn't do all that shit they do today with rivals. We didn't believe in that. We were looking for football players. Jimmy was looking for football players. And sometimes he would look at a guy and go, he doesn't have a lot of scholarship offers. Why? Because no one's recruiting him. No one has the vision to see the true position for the kid. That's why that guy was a great talent evaluator. We'll move him to offensive guard. Or we'll move him to linebacker. I mean, when Ray Lewis came into Miami, there was thoughts of playing him at fullback because he played it in high school. Everyone went, no, that guy's a linebacker. You know, Ray Lewis wasn't even in the program his freshman year at Miami because no one recruited him. He had 3 college scholarship offers, did Ray Lewis. Gave him, somebody bowed out. Miami gave him the last one. Ray wasn't even in the program his freshman year. Miami gave him a scholarship. Rest is history. Okay? Rest is history. You're looking for football players. You're not looking for names on the back of the jersey. Don't ever be snowed by the name on the back of the jersey when you're talking about drafting, because that's where you get lost. You got to look at ability, who they play against, their skill set, how hard they work. Are they getting better too from year one when they got into the college? Like here's a great example of somebody that really kind of shot up and was a late bloomer. Dak Prescott was a late bloomer. What was Dak, a 4th or 5th rounder out of Mississippi State? But Dak had started winning games with the Bulldogs. I think the Bulldogs under Dan Mullen got the first ranking at one time when he was there. And from his freshman year until the time he left Mississippi State, Dak was getting better. You saw him getting better. And Dak has been completely underdrafted. Whatever you think of Dak Prescott, he's underdrafted. Jalen Hurts is underdrafted. That's a good thing in a way. Joe Montana was underdrafted. Russell Wilson was underdrafted. Those stories are the ones that you look for, and you're going, shit. You drafted Joe Montana, and Brady is the ultimate face of underdrafting. Okay? So let's go through the list of my final mock draft as we get ready for tomorrow night's NFL draft. By the way, I got some surprises in this thing, and I think you're going to be surprised. At number 1, I got Bryce Young going to the Carolina Panthers. I don't believe shit about Will Levis. I don't believe that to save my life. Okay? Do I think that Frank is pausing in a way because of the size of Bryce? Maybe a tad. But today's NFL is a lot different than the Jim Kelly NFL. You can't hit these guys. The league doesn't want Case Keenum versus Nick Foles in an NFC championship game. They want the faces of the franchise in those marquee ball games for a reason. So they protect and overprotect that position more. That's why Bryce Young, in my opinion, is what Carolina needs. He's smart. He knows where to go with the ball. And what Frank is going to do for him, Bryce Young, he's going to do the same thing that he's done with every quarterback, from Carson Wentz to Phillip Rivers to Jim Kelly to whomever he's worked with. He is going to put a customized offense to fit Bryce Young's skill set. He's the best quarterback in the draft, talent-wise. Okay? Don't let Tom Brady's body fool you, because it fooled you, didn't it? When you saw Tom Brady's body at the draft and you saw his 40, it fooled you, didn't it? It fooled you. Horrible-looking body, couldn't run, had no redeeming qualities about a physical athlete at all. How does that turn out to be the greatest football player of all time? Listen to what I just said. That Tom Brady picture that he posted. Flabby, no chest, ran a 5.9 40, had no athleticism. He didn't run a 4.4 like Justin Fields. He doesn't have the athleticism of Anthony Richardson. He goes on to become the greatest football player in the history of the National Football League. Sometimes you got to look through the fat. Patriots missed him 5 times. You know, everyone always goes, well, the Patriots, the Patriots missed them too, dude. Don't get it twisted here. Patriots Bill Belichick got lucky. The only reason that I'll kind of pause at saying luck, he did draft Jacoby Brissett. He did draft Matt Castle. He did draft Jimmy Garoppolo. He did draft Mac Jones. He did draft Bailey Zappi. What do these guys all have in common? They all started in the NFL. They were all at one time starters. So, I mean, he has to have some type of eye for the quarterback position. Okay? I think this is an important draft for Howie, because you know what it's got to do? I think it's got to accentuate last year's draft that had no impact on the football team. Last year's draft had 0 impact. Well, they need those players to play, because right now you don't have a linebacker. Right now you've got a questionable defensive tackle. Now, you know what's crazy? People will go, you flip-flopped. Today, Jordan Davis is a question mark. Nakobe Dean is a question mark. I don't care what you say. Now, if they go out and ball and their production lifts it, good for them. That means they got better. Congratulations. You're in the NFL. You were drafted high. What do you want me to do? Thank you for not robbing a bank? People want to thank people for just the common. Bro, you were drafted 13th. Step up. Nakobe, you're a third rounder. Let's see it. I haven't yet. And the conversation that you hear in Philly about those two guys is asinine. You're praying for him, hoping for him, talking potential. All shit that hasn't happened yet. Okay? Those guys have to show up. And by the way, as Eagle fans, you should freaking demand it. Dude, you're not in love with those guys. You're in love with the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay? You're in love with the Eagles, not those players. Always remember that. The Eagles is what you love. The Eagles is what you root for. Okay. Sean goes, they played behind elite talent. Really? So you think Nakobe Dean played behind an elite Kaiser White, and you think Kaiser White is elite talent? Really? Huh. Huh? Give me a break. Move on from that asinine comment. I got Bryce Young, Carolina going 1. Number 2. I got Will Levis going to Houston at number 2. The Kentucky quarterback. I am not sold on C.J. Stroud. I am not. I'm not a C.J. Stroud fan. I'll never be. You'll have to show me one day when an Ohio State quarterback actually pans out. They don't recruit to position. The conference doesn't produce quarterbacks. I mean, like I said, what superstar quarterback came from the Big Ten that's in the NFL right now? And if you want to give Russell Wilson the 1 year with Wisconsin instead of the 4 with NC State, okay, sure. Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's he's a wolf pack. Okay? You think that conference truly produces great quarterbacks. That school never does. C.J. Stroud is Cardell Jones. He's Cardell Jones. Number 3, you will have to, excuse me here, but you're in the land of lies right now, and I don't know what is being thrown around out there. But if Arizona could F this up because why? Michael Bidwell owns the team. Okay? Michael Bidwell owns the team. You easily could screw this pick up, but hopefully common sense will land in the right direction here for this team that needs some good news. You're being accused of sexual harassment, an unhealthy work environment. Every player wants to get the hell out of there. Nobody wants to be around it. And you got a head coach who's still crying about the fact that the Philadelphia Eagle fans shit on him last year when he was the defensive coordinator. I don't know, guy, maybe you want to grow up a little bit too and act like a head coach. So I'm saying Will Anderson kind of settles that. And you bring in an elite football player. And I would say this to you. He's probably the best defensive football player that you've drafted in quite some time if you get Will Anderson, Alabama, edge rusher. Indianapolis, I think, is going to take – I debated. I really did. I debated. But I think they're going to take Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson, to me, I think he fits the I think he fits exactly what Shane Steichen wants to implement there. Plus, you have a running game with Jonathan Taylor. And I think he wants to put the Eagle offense in Indianapolis. And I think Richardson goes to the Colts at number 4, the Florida Gator. I think he's overdrafted. And I think there's a high probability he could be a bust. But there's that outside shot that Irsay maybe lands on something here. He struck out. You know who the best quarterback they've had in the building since Andrew Luck has been? Phillip Rivers. He's been the best quarterback because Phillip Rivers took you the furthest. Rivers put Buffalo on its ear in that playoff game. He almost got him. So I think they put Richardson here because it fits kind of what Shane wants to do in Indianapolis. Number 5, Seattle. I got Tyree Wilson here. And pressure, containment, defense are all the hallmarks of Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll likes pressure on the quarterback, and he likes it with his front 7. Okay? He loves to do it with his front 7. So to me, Tyree Wilson makes sense here. Does a quarterback maybe make sense here with Stroud still on the board? I don't have Stroud highly rated. I just don't. I don't see it. Oh, I'm suggesting he'll probably go in the top 10, but I don't see it. I've never seen it. I saw him struggling against Indiana. Number 6, Detroit. They got their slot safety. They got their defensive edge rusher last year. Now they're going to get a cornerback. I think they take Christian Gonzalez here. It's a big need at corner, and they want to play man and press. And you add, get this, to that defense, Christian Gonzalez, who's the best corner in the draft. It's him and then everyone else. You put Gonzalez and C.J. Gardner-Johnson back there. Your edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson. Still got some moves to do in the draft yet. To me, you're talking about a defense, and I'll say this to you. That offense would start looking a little bit, and that team would start to look a little bit like when Pete Carroll built that 2-time Super Bowl participant Seattle team. You have something in Detroit working here pretty good here. Okay? You got something working here pretty good. So I see them taking Christian Gonzalez, Detroit, at number 6. The Raiders, you never know what they're going to do because they don't really supply themselves with the Bledsoe list, and they're always all over the place in the draft. But I'll tell you something that the Raiders have not gotten right since Jack Del Rio was the head coach. They can't get people on the ground in the secondary. They cannot tackle in the secondary. They cannot tackle. They have not had DBs in Oakland / Los Angeles / Las Vegas for decades. They've got to get people on the ground, man. And when you're in the AFC West, what's the 2 things you need, man? You need edge rushers and you need corners because you've got the best quarterback division in all of football in the AFC West. Okay? You got the best division in football. And you've got to deal with that. So you got to deal with edge rushers and corners. You got to get lockdowns here, man. So I say they take Devon Witherspoon, Illinois cornerback, second best player, one of my favorite players in this draft. At number 8, I believe the Atlanta Falcons select Jalen Carter and keep him home in Atlanta. I think they're going to run with that kid Desmond Ridder. I think they're going to run with him. And Jalen Carter, they need to stop people on that side of the ball. He played his football in Atlanta or in Georgia. He's home. They probably had a ton of time being around him. I think Jalen Carter goes to the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. and stays home and plays in the state of Georgia. At number 9, look, if you notice one thing about my picks, they all make sense. Bryce Young's the best quarterback. Carolina, Frank Reich. Will Levis, Houston needs a quarterback. Davis Mills is not cutting it. Will Anderson's the best defensive player. They need an edge rusher. They have a quarterback. Anthony Richardson to Indianapolis. Shane Steichen, Jalen Hurts, same offense. Tyree Wilson, pressure. Pete Carroll, defensive-minded coach. Christian Gonzalez, Detroit, they need corner help. Big time. It's the biggest need on the team. Depending on what you think of golf. The Raiders have to get people on the ground. You're in the AFC West. You need corners or edge. And I don't think there's an edge rusher there. I think the better player is a corner there. Witherspoon is better than any other edge rusher after Tyree Wilson. If Tyree Wilson was there, I would say the Raiders would take him. Okay? But I don't believe he's going to be there. I got Carter going to Atlanta. Number 9, Chicago's got to protect and do everything they can for Justin Fields right now. Putting a guy on defense. I mean, if they draft somebody on defense, the Bears, it'll just show you how incompetent that organization is and how they don't understand the draft. They don't understand free agency. You let Roquan Smith go, and yet you still pay over $130 million in linebackers when you had one of the top 2 inside guys in the entire game and he's young. How does that make sense? So you changed one player who's elite for 2 mediocre dudes. Okay? Really? And you overpaid both guys. It just doesn't make sense. It complete. Then you let go of Hakeem Hicks. You let him go to Tampa. It just doesn't make sense. So you're going to turn around and draft a guy on defense on that side of the ball? Why? You need to help your quarterback. And don't build from the outside. Watch this. I bet you anything the Bears will consider drafting a wide receiver there at 9. It'll show you how incompetent they are. They need O-line help, man. Their pass protection was terrible last year. The kid almost got killed. How many times did you watch a game, Tone, right? And you saw Justin Fields getting annihilated in the game? How many times did you watch him get annihilated? And more so than anything, not in the perimeter, but in the pocket. I saw a preseason game. They depleted him. I mean, he got annihilated. Well, you need to improve that. Okay? Dude, I mean, and you know what's crazy? I don't like the kid as a ball player. He did get better. He did improve. He did make it formidable. So that made me go, okay, well, let's put some better players around him. Let's see what he can do with better players. Because you know what? Make me like you. And he did. He did. He made me like him more. I'm like, you know, there's something, it's getting there. I don't know. I just think he struggles. How can you be accurate when you're running for your life, though? You know? How can you be accurate when you're running for your life? You can't be. So I think he's getting better. Peter Skornowski's the pick. They probably had a ton of times to go over to Northwestern and watch him play and send talent scouts over there. And I'm sure because he's a local guy, too, it makes a lot of sense. Plays in the Chicago area there. Northwestern, smart kid, all the intangibles. You know, I mean, again, he's one of your higher-rated guys, so he's going to go off the board first. Okay, not a problem. Here's where I am kind of with everybody. I think the Eagles trade this pick to New England, who wants Paris Johnson. The Eagles want the Eagles, in my opinion, and they're going to get multiple picks. Plus, they're going to get the 14th pick with New England. So you're going to get multiple picks. Okay? And you'll have to follow me here. Here are the pitfalls. And I do think they moved down to 14 for Robinson. And I'll get down there. Broderick Jones, Tennessee. You've got Derrick Henry in the building. According to Rand Carthon, they have no intention of trading him. Okay, so that's not a Bijan Robinson landing point. Now, if you're Philly, are you concerned about number 12? Robinson to the Texans. Local kid, quarterback, Levis and Robinson. Kind of makes sense. Why get a wideout when I could maybe sign DeAndre Hopkins and bring him back or draft a guy later? The Texans pick kind of nerves me because they could take him there. Remember, they've watched him play. They know, everybody in this draft knows who he is. I say Jackson Smith Najaba. I think they get a wide receiver for their new quarterback. However, that would nerve me, especially if I'm trying to get Robinson. The Cowboys are somebody to keep an eye on here because they could leapfrog ahead of them. The Cowboys don't have a lot of equity here. And I'm going to line it up with something here in a second and show you the probabilities of this. And let's do it. We should do that now. The teams with the most draft picks for Howie to do deals with: Green Bay, Houston, Las Vegas. All three have 12. So if you're Houston, you have 12 draft choices, and you have the second and the 12th pick, and you have 12 draft choices. They're going to be exceptionally active in this draft, I think, Houston, with Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio is going to be very active. He's got 12 picks, 2 picks in the first round. You're taking a quarterback. Do you take a quarterback or the running back there? See, that Texans, it kind of nerves me. So if you're Howie, you're at 10. Do you move down to 11? Now, would Tennessee move up? Why? To get the guy they could get at 11, knowing full well you want Robinson? See, the Texans are the ones that nerve me. Green Bay at 13 doesn't. They got Aaron Jones. And then there's Philly at 14. The Texans are the problem here in this move with New England. New England currently has the 14th pick. New England has 11 picks to offer up. Think about that. So they've got the 14th pick and 11 picks. They could do some damage in this draft. And they could move up. They could move back further down to get another multiple first-round pick. The Texans are the problem because do they go wide out? Or do they go a local kid? Okay? Now, if the Texans do this, say you really are where Big Sills is with these quarterbacks and you don't think shit of them after Bryce Young. Do you take Will Anderson at 2? And then Bijan Robinson at 12? Or do you move up to 10 to take him? I could see the Texans taking him because he's a local guy and it's goodwill after the whole Deshaun Watson mess. And get this, that Florida Gator kid. Can you imagine that running back they got? The Florida Gator guy that we saw play against the Eagles. You put him in the same backfield. And you got Anderson on the other side. Okay? Marshall says Texans won't take a running back. You forgot about Pierce Hills. I didn't forget about him. I didn't forget about him. Right now, they don't. Yeah, but Marshall, what's a low turnover play right now? Turning around and handing it to your running back. What better way to take high percentage turnovers that the Texans struggled with last year than having them have to throw the ball down the field when you could create a running game and you can also go into free agency and get some wide receivers or wide receivers in the latter rounds. It's not the greatest wide receiver draft, but at the end of the day here, what helps them more? Okay? I don't believe that quarterbacks in this draft are that good. I just do not think it, and I don't see it. How many people fell in love with Zach Wilson and Brandon Weeden and all these other guys, Josh Rosens, and I mean, Sam Darnolds? They're all dogs. They were dogs in college. I mean, really, Will Levis, you see anything spectacular about that guy? I so do not. Bryce Young, spectacular. Anthony Richardson is not spectacular. Shit, the kid at Tennessee is more spectacular. That Hendon Hooker kid, to me, honestly, Hendon Hooker looks like a better quarterback to me than does Anthony Richardson. I don't know. He just looks like a better ball player. Texans should take Anderson at 2. QBs will fall. I just don't think they're good. So again, I think the Texans are somebody to worry about in there. I got Zay Flowers going to Green Bay. You got to have to do everything in your power to do what? You got to make Jordan Love work. And you got to bring as many wide receivers as you possibly can. Do you know this will be the first wide receiver that the Green Bay Packers will draft in the first round in 38 years? 38 years. Why is that? Well, for 30 years, you had 2 quarterbacks in the building. You had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. 30 years, and you won 2 Super Bowls. I don't know. Seems to be a little underachieving. That whole situation in Green Bay was underachieving. Completely underachieving. I don't care what they say. You had 5 Super Bowls between Steve Young and Joe Montana. That's achieving. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks? 2 quarterbacks that won Super Bowls? I'll take that. I'll take that duo over the Favre and Rodgers duo any day. Any day. Am I wrong? Okay. I got Robinson at 14. Let me double check that, Weapon. Because I had heard he had decided 2 days ago not to. Is Zay Flowers going into the NFL draft? I'm asking a guy a question here. I'm getting different stories here. Is that true? Is that I want to know if that's true. We'll address that. A Weapon. Wait, because I'm getting different people are saying that he's going into the draft. I'll work on that. Okay. Okay. Let me continue here. So at 15 now, I know you guys love this guy, but I'm going to keep him locally and they need an edge rusher. Okay. I got Green Bay taking Lucas Van Ness. And that, I believe, is the Jets pick. So Green Bay gets the kid from Iowa, edge rusher. They need pass rushing, and you could situationally pass rush him. At 16, Washington. This is where I think C.J. Stroud goes. I think they take another gamble on an Ohio State quarterback, and they draft C.J. Stroud here. Ohio State at 16. That's where I would take him. The guy's not a top 10 player. Again, no, I don't think Anthony Richardson is, but he kind of fits what Steichen wants to do. I don't think Will Levis is the top 10 player. But the Texans want a quarterback. Okay? All right? That's right. The Jets have the 15th pick. So the Jets, because of the yesterday, that's right. The Jets take Lucas Van Ness at 15 with the Green Bay pick. That was their pick. It's now the Jets pick because the head coach believes in pressure. He sees this kid a little bit like Nick Bosa. And to me, I think you end up seeing him go to the Packers. That was the Jets pick, my friend. So he goes to Green Bay. Number 17. Deonte Banks, Pittsburgh. Cornerback. Maryland. They need corner help. They want to upgrade. Brian Breezy, Detroit. Look what Detroit does now. Watch me, guys. Watch what I'm saying here at Detroit here. So Detroit gets Gonzalez at corner. Last year you got Aiden Hutchinson. Now you're adding Brian Breezy and you're adding Christian Gonzalez to your football team and your defense. The Detroit Lions are going to be a formidable team this coming season. They're going to be a formidable team. Okay? So you put Breezy in there next to Hutchinson. You got Gonzalez at the cornerback position. You went in free agency and got CJ. That's a pretty good-looking football team you're putting together there. I do. I agree with you, Steven. Steven, I agree with you. And what Yale's pointing out, Jamison Williams comes back after 6 games. That's going to be like another first-rounder being added to your offense. So Jamison Williams is going to be out there at wideout. You're going to have the second-best offensive line in the NFL. You're going to have a revamped defense. You're going to have a heck of a running game and a quarterback who's pulling it out of the abyss. Detroit's going to win the NFC North. I believe Detroit's going to win the NFC North. They're good look. They're moving. I think the Buccaneers at number 19, I think they go with an offensive lineman. I think they go with a local kid, Osiris Torrance, the kid from Florida. And again, doesn't really matter. He's in the sandbox with the rest of these dudes. Okay? He's in the sandbox. Now you're going to be shocked. Okay? Now you're going to be shocked. At number 20, Seattle has the pick. I got Hendon Hooker going here. I think they're going to draft Hendon Hooker. And they're going to take him at 20. Total project. I think he's better than Anthony Richardson. I think he's better. Every time you watch him and you put the tape on, I think he's a good football player. I think he's a leader. I see a lot of Jalen Hurts in him. I mean, you have a guy who sits behind Geno, learns how to play the position. You're around really great coaching. I don't know, man. There's something about this Hendon Hooker kid that I think has started to really open people's eyes. I mean, when you put Anthony Richardson next to him, Anthony Richardson's not a better ball player. He's just not a better ball player. And so, I don't know. I'm taking a gamble here. And I say Seattle takes him at 20. Okay? He's just raw talent. I agree. James, he's raw talent. When you watched him against Alabama, man, were you not impressed with all those first rounders that Bama has on their team? I mean, Will Anderson, He was running circles around those guys. There's something about him, man. Okay? I would take a shot at him. Now look, boy, you watch this. Watch Hendon Hooker turn out to be a better ball player than Anthony Richardson. I think he's a better ball player. Okay? I watch, get this. For me to put him down there at 20, because Pete is a defensive guy, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I think he goes with another edge guy or maybe corner here. And then I started watching Hendon Hooker tape. And I'm watching Inside 22 on him. And I'm talking to Baldy. And I go, Baldy, this guy is a good ball player. He goes, you're not nervous saying that? I go, no, man. At 20? Today you can move off these moves quick. You don't have to be super tied to these guys. I'm going to put him at 20, man. Baldy was like, wow, that's great. I think he's a great player too, man. I go, and Seattle could get a deal here. So how about if you get your franchise quarterback at 20? Isn't that worth the gamble? If you think the guy's good enough and if we're talking about dual threat guys taking over, isn't he the kind of guy you want to take a shot at? Why would I want to take a shot at Anthony Richardson at 4 when I got to pay the guy a ton? When I could get a guy like that at 20 who I think is a better ball player. Weapon goes, Anthony Richardson's Tim Tebow. Yeah, and plus, Mr. Credit, then you get the 5th-year option on Hooker too. I'm going with him, man. Hey, chances of them doing it are slim, but if that were me, I would do that. If I was John Schneider, I would definitely take a look at this. Okay? Maybe, yeah, overreach, maybe. But it's quarterback position. And you got Geno in the building. JM goes, Hooker is Tyrod Taylor at best. Well, Tyrod Taylor's got a Pro Bowl under his belt. Does that make him bad? I think Tyrod Taylor had a Pro Bowl. So you're telling me that Hendon Hooker could be a Pro Bowl football player? Is that what you're saying? Let me double check that. Tyrod Taylor. Want to double check that. Yeah, Pro Bowl 2015. ACC Player of the Year, ACC Offensive Player of the Year. 60 to 26 interceptions, 62 completion percentage, 20 rushing touchdowns. He's not bad. At 20, though, I think he's better than him. I think he's better. At number 21, Chargers. Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee. Little run on Tennessee guys here. Wide receiver. I think you're going to lose either Mike Williams or you're going to lose Keenan Allen because you got to pay Justin Herbert. So you're going to lose one of those two dudes. So you, in my opinion, you got to draft a wideout. Plus, you want to make Justin Herbert happy, right? If you're going to give a guy $55 million, you got to continue. You got to continue to go out there and you got to continue to put players around him. Number 23, Minnesota Vikings. Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator there now. I say Nolan Smith, Georgia, is number 23 to Minnesota for Brian Flores. Brian Flores likes pressure. He likes to play press coverage. I'm not sure they have the corners to do that, but it will not be the same defense that you saw last year with that umbrella bullshit with Brian Flores. Brian Flores, look what he did with the Dolphins. Look at that roster right now. You know, I never would have thought that they would have really ever upgraded But they went out and they started doing a lot more free agent moves, and they started doing a lot more. Really, the quarterback in Miami is the only question mark now. Okay? Nolan Smith, Minnesota. I don't personally think there's another corner that's better than him, or I probably would have went corner. Now, if one of the corners dropped there, maybe. But there's not a better corner there than Nolan Smith. Number 24, Darnell Wright, Jags, Tennessee Volunteers, offensive tackle. Remember, Trevor Lawrence, continuing to build around Trevor Lawrence, protecting him. They went out, and what did they do? They went out and got a wide receiver for him. They got the kid from Atlanta for him. You got NTN in the backfield. You did a lot of addressing in the draft last year on what? The defense. Now, you've got to protect your quarterback. Continue to get better. Build in the trenches. Where did Doug learn that? Philly. He learned that in Philly. Okay? Chris Greer is doing a great job in Miami. The question mark is the quarterback. And you see, the problem in Miami, here, we'll just say it. Remember what they did. They chose Tagovailoa over Herbert, which is a tragic mistake. And they've got to make that pick right. They drafted Tua Tagovailoa over Justin Herbert. Colossal failure there. And on top of that, what's the other failure? Your owner is doing side deals with not only trying to undermine the head coach, but he's doing side deals with Tom Brady. So you had a whole colossal, off the field, organizationally disgusting mishaps in Miami. And guess what? Your problem is not Chris Greer. The problem is the owner. The owner is all over the place. Okay? Personally, I think Brady going to Miami, I would not rule that out. I would not rule that out. You lost the first round pick because of your bullshit. You undermined and you polluted Brian Flores' stay in Miami. So much so everyone chastised you to a point where you lost your number one pick because of the Brady fiasco. You get accused of fixing football games. NFL wanted none of that. Tanking is fixing. Howie Roseman fixed the game at the end of the year. Doug's final game was a fixed job. I don't care. You want to call it tanking? Go ahead. To me, it's fixing a game. When you don't put your best football players on a football field to win a game, whether you're 13-3 or 3-13, you're fixing a freaking football game. You're fixing it so that you can get a better draft position because that's what you do. That's fixing a ball game. Tanking in the – don't you like what some of these leagues and some of these owners do? They have these covert words now. Tanking is fixing. Tanking is fixing. Okay, Howie wanted a better pick? Great. That's code for fixing. Any way you look at it. You take your best players off the field, you don't play them, and you put stiffs in there, and you lose the game? I don't know. Nate Sudfeld. I wanted to see what he could do. No, you didn't. You didn't want to win the game. Nate Sudfeld over Jalen Hurts. Think about that. How he wanted to see what he had in Nate Sudfeld over Jalen Hurts. Remember that? How sold was Howie on Jalen? It's either one or the other. Either he really was or he was tanking the game. Which one do you want to go with? Which one do you want to go with? Fixing the game or he wasn't sold on Jalen? You know, we got to see what we got here. Nate Sudfeld. Who's Nate Sudfeld? Is that the kid that played at Stanford? Was a total tank. Nate Sudfeld. He was a Stanford guy, right? Nate Sudfeld. How funny. Guy's a bum. Good trick by Howie. Tanking. Intentionally losing a game. All right. However you want to swallow that. Okay. He played at Purdue. Nate did? Oh, maybe so. That guy beat Ohio State, maybe, right? Nate Sudfeld. I want to see what I had from the Purdue guy. Oh, my God. This is classic. Number 24, Darnell Wright. I said that. Tennessee offensive tackle. I got Jordan Addison being added to the greatness of Danny Dimes. Southern Cal wide receiver. Michael Mayer, Cowboys, tight end. There for Dak. I got Jack Campbell, best linebacker in the draft, only linebacker in the draft, going to the Bills, Iowa, 27. I got Joey Porter at 28, going to the Bengals, DB, Penn State. Myles Murphy, 29, New Orleans, Clemson, edge. Number 30, not trading out. I'm just going to put a player here. Anton Harmon, Oklahoma offensive tackle, Philly. And I got Kalijah Cansey going to Kansas City, Pittsburgh defensive tackle with the 31st pick. So I got the Oklahoma offensive tackle. You guys have been pretty good with Oklahoma tackles, don't you think? And I got him at 30. So I got Bijan and a tackle. 2 needs on the team. Okay? 2 needs on the team. Porter at 30, you don't need him. I'm going to draft next year to get him. Holy cow. Tony, have I gone past the post here a bit? All right. We have Merrill Reese with us at 5:30. I want to take a look at the teams, okay, that have the most draft equity and makes most sense for Howie to trade with on draft day. So we'll do that. We'll do that next. Okay, so we did the mock draft there a little bit. Now we're going to take a look at the teams that have the most assets that Howie could trade with. And there's quite a few. And by the way, the Eagles have the least amount of picks in the NFC East. So we'll do all that next. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.